I've never asked you. How is it that you believe?
From the moment you come into the world, you and your brothers know your purpose. But the rest of us have to seek these things on our own.
Hey guys, Pete here. This will be my breakdown for Foundation Season 1, Episode 6. If you were missing the Cleons, Death and the Maiden gave us a double dose. We get two stories focusing on Brother Day and Brother Dawn, who are both in different locations. We also get some movement on Terminus and some more hints about what Hari Seldon was up to, and we will get into all of that after a quick spoiler warning. If you haven't watched episode 6 yet, then this video won't be for you. And with that out of the way, let's get into it. The 6th episode opens with another narration from the future from Gaal, talking about Trantor and the Emperor that would live forever, the man who had triumphed over death itself, the leader who never knew doubt in all his lifetimes until he met Hari Seldon. On his ship, we see that the current Brother Day, Cleon the 13th if you're keeping track, was a little messed up from the hyperspatial travel of the jump. Considering the active ruler has never left the planet since the Genetic Dynasty took over, we can presume that he probably hasn't experienced this before, unless it happened when he was younger. Out of curiosity, he asks Demerzel what it's like to be awake during the trip. He mentions that the spacers, who are there watching over humans as they travel, are engineered for it, but he barely considers them human. This may turn out to be important later, but what stands out about it now is that these spacers are something different than what we know about from Asimov's other work. Demerzel tells him that when space folds, the human mind can't tolerate the discontinuity, which makes us wonder why Gaal's could whenever she woke up during her first trip on a jump ship. There's another question of what Demerzel was actually doing when he walks in on her. It looks like she's repairing her face, so does she have to do routine maintenance? When I first saw it, I thought maybe that's how she prepares herself to go in front of people, but then later we find out that she wasn't planning on leaving the ship. Anyway, in case you forgot, she's a robot. As they approach their destination, we learn a lot about Luminism as they talk. It's 15,000 years old, it predates the Empire, 3 trillion people believe in this faith, and they wear crystals made of salt that come from the Leviathan mines, and they pray by ritualistically touching it. Which is something we've seen Demerzel do in previous episodes. Because yeah, she does actually believe in this religion. Brother Day doesn't understand it. He says that she has a purpose to serve him and his brothers in the Empire. It's actually built into her code. And she explains by saying that the search for meaning is not always about the answer. It's also the process of seeking that enlightens. So the show is building up its own lore here. Zephyr Halima is definitely a threat to the Emperor's power, and we see that she has some pull when she's the first person to welcome him on his arrival. The fact that she's by herself, that there's no big welcome for the ruler of the entire galaxy, takes him out of his element. This all looks pretty great, especially the ship coming into the Salt Palace. And it's all in service to the premise that there's going to be a new Proxima. The previous one died. Brother Day meets with Zephyr Galat, who is the one that's on his side. She's in the lead to become the next Proxima, but the vote could go towards Halima. He tries to tip the scales by pledging to have the Empire build a moon-wide desalination plant so that everyone there will have fresh water, which seems to solidify things for Galat until the rebirth ceremony for the previous Proxima is interrupted by Halima, who just sort of walks in and makes this crazy moving speech for everyone there, where she says that the greatest crime against the mother is stagnation, which is basically saying that the Genetic Dynasty goes against their faith. The crowd is moved, even Demerzel bows with the others, and that leaves Day as the odd man out. It's not as if they're in a frenzy against the existence of the Emperor, but you can see that she's opening the door and may be charismatic enough to take them there. So while Brother Day's in a struggle to win the hearts and minds of the followers of the luminous faith, Brother Dawn is struggling with how different he is from those that came before him. We see this play out with Azura, the gardener who saw him jump from his balcony, and when Brother Dusk takes him hunting. On his first time out, he kills twice as many as Dusk's record, which he knows might be a problem, so he takes 3 of those and throws them in the bushes and tries to make out like they killed the exact same number. Brother Dusk tells him that only a man can replace the man after their hunt, and he takes him to a brothel where we learn that they sleep with women who have their memories erased afterwards so they don't have any recollection of what happened. He picks a woman that looks a lot like Azura and then doesn't sleep with her, and we see that Brother Dusk learns about this because he has her brought to him before her memory's wiped. Later, we see Dawn invite Azura into his room. He wants to show her the garden from the ledge outside his window. When she's reluctant to come out, he takes off his protective aura and offers to let her put it on. She declines, and we learn that he's colorblind. And this is a problem because he's different from all the Cleons that preceded him. And maybe this explains why he was so good at hunting, but it is one of his biggest secrets, and now she knows about it. In a gesture to earn his trust, she steps towards the edge and says, if I were trying to keep a secret, I'd push me off. And instead of killing her on the spot, he decides to kiss her, which is the last that we see of these two. Then we see his secret from the hunt get discovered by the mysterious Shadow Master Obrecht. In my episode 3 and 4 Book to Show video, I mentioned how this guy has shown up twice, 35 years apart, and doesn't look like he's aged at all. And at the end of his scene here, he walks away and just sort of disappears, which I'm not sure what they were actually going for there. It adds to his mystery, and I hope we find out more about what's going on with this character in the next couple of episodes. On Terminus, the Anacreon troops are at the crash site for the jump ship, and we find out that they're looking for Dorwin, who they're sure survived, because the Empire is as good at preserving their people's lives as they are at taking the lives of others. Back at Terminus City, we see the aftermath of the battle, and we see two of the kids from the first episode who survived. It does look like a lot of people died in the attack. Salvor is still out cold. Phara decides to keep her alive because she thinks she's the key to the vault, which is a big unknown at this point. Dorwin is more important to their plan, and they need some encyclopedists, and she mentions that they need to get going because the Invictus won't wait forever. The kids were hiding. They're eventually able to rescue Salvor, who explains that the Invictus was a ghost ship. It was this legendary Imperial Destroyer that disappeared. So this is the big plan. The Anacreon think that if they can get a hold of this Invictus, it'll be their redemption. And they need some of those encyclopedists who have special skills that can help them take it over as far as we can guess. They tell them they just need their help and that they'll leave Terminus after they get what they're after. At first, the Foundationers don't want to help, but a shot in the leg to one of their loved ones gets the cooperation that the Anacreons need. Salvor and the kids make it outside. They run into her dad and Hugo. She wants to go after the corvettes, and she believes that it's possible that Hari put her there to stop the first crisis. Based on this intuition she's been having, how she's feeling drawn to do certain things, and the vault waking up. On their way there, her dad tells her about Trantor, how things were actually pretty good, at least for his family, but he says they knew it was all built on lies. And even though he didn't really understand Hari's predictions, he did want to get with her mother, and she actually did believe in the plan. So it's the father and daughter moment, which does feel a little ominous as they approach the ships. We see Salvor take the lead, even though her dad wanted to go at first, and as she starts to put her plan in action, she's hit with a vision and is disabled right there in the open on the ground. And this vision's even more vivid than the previous ones, where she's in Gaal's clothes, and we see that she's on the slow ship. We hear the conversation Hari and Raych had before the murder. Hari explains that there's only one scenario where you leave the ship, and that's the one that makes it impossible for you to remain on board. I don't take my life, you do. Raych is not into this at all. He tries to say that you can fix this, and Hari's pretty adamant. He says everything collapses because you stay here with her, referring to Gaal, and that everything would be wasted. He says that the entire galaxy is pivoting on the actions of an individual, you. They go back and forth. He asks him if he trusts the math. He says he hates the math. He asks him if he trusts him, and he said he wishes he never met him. And he says that the cryopod is programmed for you. Don't stop to say goodbye to her. And he does go ahead and stab him like we saw. And at that moment, Salvor walks in, as Gaal did. And then in the present time, Hugo wakes her up and it ends there. They are seen, and a shootout breaks out where they have the high ground and cover, but her father's out there on his own. He's trying to get to the ships with explosives, and he almost makes it as Salvor's picking off the soldiers, but he does get shot, and then he ends up sacrificing himself, detonating the explosive, which takes out the corvettes but kills him in the process. Later, after they get away, Salvor has another crisis of faith. She thinks that everything that's going wrong is her fault. She tells Hugo what she heard Hari say, and again, he thinks she's special, and she's resistant to the idea. But now that her father's dead, she's really motivated to get revenge against Phara. The episode comes to an end when they try to sneak back to his ship. They're caught right away because what else is Phara actually doing but waiting after they destroyed the corvettes? She orders her men to kill Salvor, and Hugo transfers control of his ship. He slaves it to her so that they'll need her alive. And they need him also because she doesn't know anything about piloting a ship. So Phara has everything she needs, and they load up, and the episode ends with them leaving the planet. It feels like things are closing in on Brother Dawn. I can't imagine he has much actual freedom considering his status, which means his meeting with Azura is probably known. And when you add that to Shadow Master Obrecht finding the extra kills, and the sex worker reporting back to Dusk, suspicion has to be mounting. Brother Day's predicament is serious, and I guess it complicates things having Demerzel torn between the Empire and the Faith. I'm not sure what else to say about this because it's all been set up so far. He's gonna have to find a way to bring Halima down, and she does seem like a worthy adversary. Oh, Terminus. Well, we do know why Phara and her people showed up now. They needed a member of the Imperial military and some scientists to get themselves a legendary jump ship that disappeared sometime in the past. I suppose this is what we saw happening in the trailer where Salvor was out in the vacuum in a suit, and she lost her father here, which could be a turning point for the character, but the visions of Hari, Seldon, and Raych were kind of a bigger deal. Now we know for sure why Hari had Raych take his life. He wanted to ensure that after it was done, Raych would be forced to leave in the pod and to get away from Gaal. Where it gets muddy is this whole thing of Salvor as Gaal being there, seeing it. Are these visions connected with the feeling that Gaal had that caused her to run in and see this murder in the first place? Since we don't know any more about Gaal's mysterious feelings, they don't really explain Salvor's visions. Something is going on in relation to these two characters, but other than picking things that happened out of the books and trying to apply them, I don't think the show's given us enough to make sense of it. And the same goes for Demerzel. We can't really say why the only robot in the show, the last of her kind as it were, would be religious other than what she told Brother Day in the episode. We don't know how her kind was taken out, how she came into service of Cleon the First, or if regular people in the story know she's a robot outside of the Emperors. The fact that Hari said the entire galaxy is pivoting on the actions of an individual, and there's this idea that everything would collapse if Raych stayed with Gaal, makes me really hope that we see him again in the next episode. I'd like a further explanation of what's going on there. And I suppose we're getting to the point in the season where we should start to get a better understanding of all these things. And I think that's a good place to leave it. Let me know your theories in the comments and what you think about this episode. Please mark any book spoilers if you want to discuss them. Please like this video if you enjoyed it. Please subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. And thanks for watching. I'll talk to you soon.